Well, over the past weeks, we've been looking at the value of social media analytics, from how brands benefit by knowing what their customers really think, to studying the sentiment on social media. And that helps us to navigate the outcomes of the recent municipal elections. We had very interesting stuff on what the social media commentary on voting, and then after the voting, was telling us about the electorate. It's a new kind of research, as well as being very entertaining. Now, no matter which sector you may find yourself in, you can't afford to overlook what's being said about you on the social media, about your brand on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. So with us tonight we have Milani from BrandsEye. Normally we have JP Kloppers. Welcome to you, Milani.
Thank you so much.
And we're looking at an industry mood index, that's what you call it, to gauge how different sectors have been received by the public over the past 2 months specifically.
Yes, yeah. We're doing a bit of a comparison as to June versus July, and just looking at a few industries and then looking at the sentiment, and specifically the net sentiment, so the difference between the positive and the negative for each of these brands, and just seeing the drivers behind them as well, behind the sentiment.
Based on social media monitoring, traffic analysis.
Exactly that, yes.
Let's start then by looking at the automobile industry. Cars, everyone's interested in cars one way and another. So let's have a look at what you found out there. So tell us what's happening here.
So you'll look at the June data there, where Mercedes-Benz was top and then Volkswagen was more the least like, if you can call it that. And now in July, the comparison, it looks exactly the same, but just Mercedes has actually just been perceived to be more positive. And the reason for that is that people are actually complimenting them on their use of technology in their campaigns to tell people about their products, specifically with their C-Class. And they also just had a campaign called E-Intelligence, which is related to their E-Class, and this car being so intelligent. It senses, you know, pedestrians walking past, and it parks itself, and it brakes itself. So people were very excited about that. If you look
Can it discipline taxis?
well, you should ask them that, but it would be nice. And on the Volkswagen side of things, unfortunately for them, people are really negative about their service centers and people booking in their cars, having to wait long to do so. And when they get there, there's no, courtesy cars to take them somewhere else. So people are unfortunately a bit negative around the service levels of Volkswagen specifically, and that drove their negative sentiment for July.
Now, they've also had emissions issues, but that's not what's driving this comment.
No, it's a bit far back. So it won't affect the sentiment at the moment. The sentiment, you'll see now, it kind of shifts every month based on something that, you know, affects it, like a promotion or a sponsorship or just operational issues. So that wouldn't.
All right, let's have a look at airlines, another thing that a lot of people, particularly in the business sector, will be interested in.
Yeah, so last month, Saturday was actually the most negative, and that was related to them doing a R2 a flight special. And their systems actually went down completely on the day where they launched it. This time, this month, in July, actually, they're the most liked, once again because of a special that they ran in terms of giving people free flights for a year. So they got it right this time. They were also voted the most punctual airline by AXA, which obviously put them in a positive light.
They obviously keep the details, AXA, so that's a good
so
stat.
they would know. And then to the contrary, Kulula was the most negative this month for the reason that their flights are always delayed, and people aren't informed in time that the flight's going to be delayed. And then because of that, that obviously just rolls into people being unhappy on a flight and, you know, talk about bad service and those type of things. So that's the reasoning behind Kulula being a bit negative in July.
All these people, everyone's would be interested in these, even if it's a grudge purchase like insurance, which we're getting to. But fast food, earlier on in the program we were talking about famous brands. They're not featured there, although Steers is a component of famous brands. In fact, it used to be called Steers. So tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, so Steers was actually driven by a campaign. The positive sentiment was driven by a campaign called Made It Myself, where they encouraged people to engage with them on social platforms as to what they would put on their burger. And they could win a lunch with Bonang Matebe if they won. So that really drove the positive sentiment. They also launched a competition for graphic designers, also linked to the Made It Myself campaign, and the prize for that was 20,000 Rand or an internship at one of the leading agencies. So that drove a lot of positive sentiment for them in July specifically. Nando's, unfortunately, people are talking about their product. And what
Let's just have a look at the slide again, because now Nando's, that surprises me a little, because Nando's was a kind of favourite brand. Even if you didn't eat it, you liked the ads. They're always cheeky.
They're so creative always.
Yeah, so what's happened there?
So the negative sentiment is driven by people talking about their prices, as well as their portion sizes. Yeah, and also the quality of their product, which is not nice for them to see, I guess.
So it's got worse from one month to the next?
Yeah, it has gotten worse. And that was specifically this month driven by those three topics.
Let's look then at insurance, which is a grudge purchase. And if they can make you happy, then that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, so the move there from Holla to Momentum, this is actually quite a good case to see how sponsorships can drive positive conversation. Momentum sponsors the women's cricket in South Africa. They've sponsored the Oyster Festival Knysna half marathon, as well as the Big 5 Challenge. They sponsored the Women's Walk, and that drove positive sentiment for them this month and put them there.
And then Momentum, the next, okay, you mentioned that. Auto in general, a very big negative there.
Yeah, so that was last month's stats, and you know, I think for the insurance industry, a lot of these stats are related, or the negative stats are related to the claims process, you know, the customer service side of things, and specifically for budget insurance, that's what it kind of circled around for the month of July. But like you say, it's a grudge purchase. People get angry when their money gets taken, or you know, or they struggle with claims, and I think that's what happened with budgets this month.
Let's work with a very big sector, which is retail, and let's see who came out there. Food Lovers Market. Now that's a brand which, in my view, I discovered Food Lovers Market a year or two ago, and suddenly realised that it was good, and it's a powerful brand now.
Yeah,
and a big competition to those other retailers.
The bigger names. And I think I know that the data is saying that this month they were so positive because of their Winter Carnival campaign. They dropped prices quite a lot for a certain period. It was like a 7 days of giveaways type of situation.
They needed to drop prices in some areas. I mean, there's some good stuff, but it's quite expensive.
Yeah, so that drove their positive sentiments. Spar, on the other hand, had a bit of a PR crisis this month to deal with. They were featured on Checkpoint, ENCA's Checkpoints, about one of their owners or managers of one of their stores being perceived as racist and treating his staff badly. And what made that situation worse is Spar didn't, as a group as a whole, actually respond to the situation. They rely on their store owners and their store managers to deal with themselves. Yeah, they rely on them to do the communication themselves, which kind of drove a bit more negative sentiment for them.
Let's go on to telecoms. Not a huge sector, but some very big companies in it, and high emotions, because people and their phones and their data.
Yeah, so what's interesting to see there is that the net sentiment is negative across the board, and I think the telcos do open themselves up for this. All of them have their social handles where they deal with complaints, and you have to keep in mind that this conversation is included in there. So their support call center, social support call center conversations are included here. So people will go to those and complain and speak about customer service issues. And that's, from the telecom point of view, it's the customer service issues that drove their negative sentiment. So these telco brands focus on driving up their positive sentiment as much as they can, and I think Cell C got it right this month with campaigns. The one thing being Cell C Challenge, where they gave away free data, and the other one being Take a Selfie campaign.
Yes.
And I know Telkom launched their free me tariffs and pricing, so maybe that'll cause some ructions going forward, where they're putting a lot of focus on the data costs and those type of things. But unfortunately for the whole industry, negative sentiment seems to be...
Okay, and the last one you've got for us is banking.
Yeah, so on the banking side, Capitec from last month and this month, people still love them. They love them because of the ease of use of their platforms, their customer service, their lower banking fees. People really enjoy that, the low banking charges. And then F&B was hampered by a bit of an operations or technical situation this month. They were down for, on the 25th of July, they were down, their system was down for quite a while.
So it doesn't take much to knock you off, eh?
No. And like I said, it's very volatile. Every month it shifts. So F&B had systems down, their customers had issues with receiving OTPs, and they also made a policy change on their e-bucks. You can't apparently now get e-bucks on the website anymore, only through using the app, which people were a bit negative.
Let's have a look now at the trend tracker. Well, Milani, one of the trends must surely be the Olympics.
Yeah, definitely a lot of conversation on that, with our teams doing well, the rowing team being second, yeah, cyclists doing well. I think the athletics is starting now, so there's going to be a lot of conversation on that. But the big talk was definitely Chad Leclerc and Michael Phelps and their
coming
feud. Yeah. So I mean, so the feud started after 2012 when Chad Leclerc won, and then Michael Phelps said he's going to retire, and then when he did, he saw that these guys' times are just not as good as thought, and then him and Chad Leclerc started chatting about, if you want to talk that way, you've got to come show it, and I think Michael Phelps did. And not
only showed it, but Leclerc came forth.
Yes, he did. And what was interesting to see is the Americans actually the South Africans taking on the Americans on Twitter about this, the Americans behind Phelps.
Oh, so it was international conversation.
Yeah, a lot of international conversation going on there. I mean, the Phelps face was born, and a lot of memes on that going out. Yeah. But I know the butterfly final 100 is coming up soon, so we'll see how that feud ends.
Well, Melanie, overall, those trends that we've seen, I mean, are you able to draw longer trends than that? Because there's such volatility in the 2 months you've shown us.
Yeah, we definitely can. For most of our clients, we actually look at a yearly period or a quarterly period to understand those drivers, because you'll see, as you correctly said, one thing will just make it shoot up and then it'll return. It's interesting normally to see the things that have affected them and kept them either negative or kept them positive, and that's definitely the value of looking at a trend over a longer time, which we do.
Well, fascinating stuff. Last week, this was as fascinating as last week's discussion on the election, which I think really takes analysis of voting to a new level through the social media. Well, thanks to Melanie from BrandsEye, Melanie Malherbe Head. She is at client engagement at Brands.